This is my CVE agenda for today. We are going to talk about the tsunamis that's happening and then tell people do not assume. And then we're going to talk about first principles thinking, not first principles thinking. You are in Japan, you will remember this. So why do I use this picture? People on the beach seeing the tsunami coming, and they were taking pictures of the tsunami, thinking that it's fun. They don't know in the next 5 minutes, they're going to die. Like this man, I don't know whether he's still living, So what I'm using this is we have tremendous social, political, technological tsunamis now hitting us more than ever before. Internet automation, that's 25 years already. Globalization, 30 years, 40 years. Green environmental revolution, 20, 30 years. Aging, you know better, in Japan, it's the most aged nation, big problem. Sharing economy, things are, taxi companies are going bankrupt because of Uber. Hotel companies are getting attacked by Airbnb. Travel agencies closing down because you can book your own flight. Now, this is very important, artificial intelligence. Later, I'll talk about OpenAI and ChatGPT, financial technology, cryptocurrencies. So first principles thinking is for you to identify and define the problem. Then you have to question the old assumptions. Then you break down the problem before you generate creative solutions. We know that the Americans are the most creative people. Look at Elon Musk. He wasn't born in America. He came to America, right? And he is one of the biggest examples I tell you about people who use first principles thinking. Actually, I did some research, and presumably Aristotle, 500 years ago, was one of the first to use first principles thinking to break down philosophy, break down the meaning of life. Okay, today we are not going to talk too much about philosophy, but more about technology, about economics. So I'm not going to talk about Aristotle, but he's one of the first who had this very logical way of breaking things down for arguing, but mostly philosophy. And then all of you know Elon Musk now, and he's probably the best example of a person who uses first principle thinking all the time. Now here, I got this from YouTube. I'm very happy because it's got Elon Musk and Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, who is my idol long time ago, and still now, even though he died almost 10 years ago. They are the people who practice first principles thinking. I will proceed and tell you why. Okay, I also talk about Leonardo da Vinci. You may think that Einstein would be rated as the most intelligent person, but Einstein was only intelligent in physics, in mathematics. The person who is most overall intelligent in the history of humankind is none other than Leonardo da Vinci. He can do everything. He paints, he sculptures, he dissects, he invents parachute, submarines, missiles, machine guns, you name it. He drew this perfect Venturion man, as you know, perfect proportion. So nobody in human history was as creative overall than him. And he used basic first principles when he painted, when he did anatomical studies, and when he did flying machines, weaponry, and engineering projects. He went back to the first principles of physics and mechanics to do all this design. All right, and my idol, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, I'm sure most of you know who he is. He was the first prime minister of Singapore. He made Singapore what it is, what it was now. And this is a very good book. By the way, the first time I visited Bhutan last August, I carried 3 of them. I gave one to His Majesty, and I gave one to present Prime Minister, and I gave one to ex-Prime Minister Tokay. So because this is a fantastic book, if you want to know about the success of Singapore, read this book, From Third World to First. Now, why was he a first principle thinking? The old way of thinking is that to be prosperous, you need a big landmass, have a lot of resources, a big internal market, and cheap labor. Singapore is small, no resources, no internal market, and not much labor. But instead, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew went to establish social stability, make sure there's racial harmony, build a very honest, efficient incorruptible civil service. I was part of it for 13 years. It's completely incorruptible. We don't dare to take even a $10 bribe. I was given a $100 necktie. I went back and declared it. And if we want to, we have to buy it back. $100 tie, which to most countries will be nothing. Educate the population, provide infrastructure, and create incentives to get foreign investment. We use other people's money to grow our own money. Later on, towards the end, I'll talk about Bhutan. That's what Bhutan can do also, because Bhutan is very similar to Singapore. It's very small in every way, and you don't have a lot of natural resources. You don't have a lot of people. So our experience is very good for you. Okay, SpaceX. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I recommend you look deeply into this man. He's an incredible genius. He's a modern day Da Vinci. Not so much Tesla, but more SpaceX. All right. He wanted to say, why cannot we go to Mars? But to go to Mars, we need to build big rockets, not the present rocket. American NASA rocket can only bring up 3 people at most. 3 people will take you 100 years to colonize Mars. We need huge rocket that will take 50, 60, 100 people at one go. He's getting near that. But he found out that it takes $60 million to build one rocket. And then 95% is burned up. Then he asked himself, why should it burn up? People say, oh, it's too heavy, you cannot take it back, whatever. So he broke down, first principle here. He broke down the rocket into aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, solid and liquid fuel. And he found that the cost is only 5% of 60 million, maybe $3 million. Then why should the rocket cost 60 million? Because everything burned up. So he went to try to revamp and build rockets that will not burn up and create a recovery mode. And then he refurbished the rocket to be used again, over and over again. And so now his launching cost is 1/10 of the original 60 to 100 million per shot. And he's redesigned a space chute, and he's now even create launch escape system in case of aborting the flight. SpaceX is completely created with first principles thinking, because the old way or assumption is that rocket is going to burn up. No way you can recover it. But he changed our mind. Okay, Apple and Steve Jobs, he's another great man until Elon Musk came along. So the old way is that telephone must have solid keyboard. Plastic keyboard cannot move, and it costs a lot to produce. You cannot carry around. Your father, your grandfather have a phone at home with a wire. It's not mobile. But now we all have cell phones. So he first started with iPod to store music and data. And in 2007, he produced the first iPhone that had a glass screen and no plastic keyboard. And it combined telephone, computer, camera into one. And it fits in the pocket and it can be upgraded. So this completely revolutionized, again, a phone. So we say, this is the man of the day. He says, do not assume. It is assumption that stop us from growing. I like the joke. You know what assume means, right? I was taught, if you don't know, do not assume, because it can make an ass out of you and me. You laugh now. So remember that. I don't want people to say, oh, professor is talking dirty words. It's not a dirty word. I was told by my boss, do not assume that when you arrive, the car will be, when you get the car, it will be full of gas. When you arrive, people will give you money. When you arrive, the hotel will be open. You have to make assumption. You have to stop assuming things. This is an actual electric vehicle. 60, 70 years ago. It is ugly. It is slow. Electric vehicle did not start with Tesla. It started 60, 70 years ago. But do you want to be in a car like that? Nobody. All right. Do you still want a cell phone like that? No. Do you want a rocket that come back and burn up? No. If I eat beef, should I assume that all beef comes from a cow? Later on, I'm going to prove to you all 4 are wrong. I already showed you the cell phone. It doesn't have to look like that. Okay, I'm going to talk about the other three later. This is, again, from first principle. You don't want to stick to all assumptions. In this case, all four are wrong. All right, so I'm going to talk a bit about Silicon Valley. It's a bit of a sidetrack, but it is important because we have the best first principles thinking all assembled in the Silicon Valley. By far, you remember, maybe if there are 10 things you use every day, 10 websites you use every day, 9 of them are from Silicon Valley. Isn't that true? Know about the Silicon Valley. If you haven't been there, there is no city called Silicon Valley. It is a concept and it's growing. Palo Alto is where Stanford is. Right now, I live in Fremont, and more companies are coming to Fremont. And these are the famous companies. Every day when I drive around, I see Google, I see HP, I see SRI, Oracle, NASA, all around us, Apple. It's like you're living in the Disneyland of high tech. This is like a high tech Disney park. So this is the evolution of Silicon Valley. I don't have time to go through it. I haven't put OpenAI down yet. And now I put in ChatGPT. What are the important things in the Silicon Valley? Money, you need time, you need talent, you need technology, you need reputation, you need customer relations. Do you know this graph was made by the president of Stanford? You know what is in the middle? You see, right now you heard me 45 minutes. Don't I talk with passion? There's passion in my voice. We are all like that. Every day you see people who are writing on the envelope, putting money in, risking their life, risking their marriage, risking their house to bet on something. I betted on the stocks of Tesla. And of course, I made out very well, but I risked a lot of money on Tesla. So again, it has talent pool, diverse, early adopter, venture capital. We have a DNA, entrepreneurship DNA, flat organization. This talk can be given a whole day. So I have to quickly go on. Okay, venture capital. That's also what we need in Bhutan. In America, there's a lot of venture capital, and most of the venture capital are in the Silicon Valley. There are different kinds of venture capital. There is seed capital, angel seed, early VC, later VC, and there are deals. The early part is cheaper, but later will be more money. The early part will be riskier. The later part will be not as risky, but it costs you more. Then diversity. We have more than 1 million foreign students in America at the moment, and 33% or more are from China, about 12-15% from India. They are from other places, Korea and other places too. And they are mainly doing engineering, business management, computer science. Very few do humanities. So they always come for very hard sciences and sciences that make money. Okay, here, the Chinese students are going sky high. Recently, it leveled off because China and US relationship is not good. So it kind of dropped off a bit. Indian students are coming up, Brazilian students are coming up. So I want to introduce a new word called disruptive innovation. This is very important. Model T is a disruptive innovation. So today, SpaceX is a disruptive innovation. These are innovations that kill the past models. Nobody will use that anymore. The model car killed horse cars. 200 years ago, there was no cars. Ford was one of the first to invent Chrysler. Mercedes, I think the Germans claim they invented the first car. Daimler invented the first car. And then now there are very few horse carts anymore. Many things are sustaining innovation. What I'm talking about, disruptive innovation. I'm an old photographer that used film most of my life. Now I use digital. From a 747 to a 787, there's not a disruptive innovation. 4 engines to 2 engines. This is more carbon fiber material. This is all steel, aluminum. So the changes are not much, but this is changes day and night. So now 99% will use digital. Very few will use film, okay? So this is what's called disruptive innovation. Now, this is probably the most important diagram. I could spend 1 hour on it, but I won't. Just going to tell you that most things change this way. Even my lifetime, if I grow to be 100 years old, in my 30s and 40s, I'm the most handsome, earn the most money, But now I'm more towards the end. I'm weaker, though I have more experience. My body is weaker. I cannot run and jump anymore. And one day I have to die. Every product, right now you don't use CDs anymore. I still use USB, but most young people don't use USB anymore. So USB is here at the bottom already, but CD is dead. Nobody use CD anymore. Nobody use magnetic tape anymore. So every product goes through this kind of curve. And if you add the bottom material, it becomes this S-curve. Now, every technology goes at S-curve, the next technology will take over. So in between is called disruption. So CD has died. USB is dying. So now it's cloud this way, okay? Cloud this way, okay? So this is the disruption in between. So be careful. If you are in a career, in a job that is in the old way, you are a big problem. For example, don't go into journalism anymore. Even lawyers are going to be out of a job. X-ray technicians are going to be out of a job because ChatGPT are going to eliminate these jobs. All right? So this is called disruptive innovation. Okay, I was a college athlete. I was a high jumper. This was the way I jumped. This is called straddle. Right around when I was jumping, this young man who just died last year from, of course, American, did this way of jumping. He was fooling around. He was playing the fool, but he jumped higher and higher. And then he won the gold medal. And from then on, nobody jumped this old way anymore. This new way is tremendously better than the old way. This way of jumping, the center of gravity is right here, right here, right here. He has to bring the center of gravity over the bar before he can clear the bar. Look here, look here. His center of gravity is below the bar, but he kicks his legs. The kicking brings him over the bar like a dolphin, like a killer shark. The kicking puts him over. So he doesn't have to bring his center of gravity by jumping over the bar. That's why everybody who jumped this way improved the old way by 6 to 10 centimeters. So nobody jumped this way anymore, just like nobody used film anymore, okay? So here you go. The old way is even worse. This is the worst way. The center of gravity is so high. This way, the center of gravity is lower. This way, the center of gravity is just above the bar. And this way, the center of gravity was below the bar. Okay, but maybe one day somebody will invent another way to be even better. But so far, no. Disruptive innovation does not need to be technology, does not need a computer. This guy was not a computer expert. He did not calculate. He just played around and found that it was better. So sometimes you can be playing the fool. Okay, so this is the main part of the talk. I'm going to quote 6 companies, but I'm only going to talk about these 4 very quickly. FedEx. Everybody use FedEx. What makes FedEx special? In the old days, if you want to send a parcel from point A to this point, you have to hire a plane to fly this way. Okay, so if it's 4x4, you need 16 different ways of doing it. So FedEx came along and said, why not I do this? I have a hub. This is Memphis, Tennessee. I collect all the parcels from the West Coast. By 4 o'clock, I fly them to Memphis, Tennessee. By midnight, they have more than 100 planes. They exchange parcels. Everything that goes to Toronto go on one plane. Everything that goes to New York goes to 3 planes. So this way actually is faster and cheaper. So from now on, you know, whenever you send a parcel by FedEx or DHL, it does not go nonstop. This is a disruptive innovation. Does it take any money? No. The inventor only wrote it on a business school paper and he proved it right. Okay, we don't have to talk much. You know, I think there's 1 or 2 Tesla in Bhutan already. Electric cars can be fast and sexy. Why is it sexy? Model S, Model E, Model X, Model Y. He's a very cheeky man. He deliberately called his cars sexy. And it's not Model E, it's Model 3. But 3 is reversed, it becomes E. This is Model S, the most expensive one. All right, this is Model 3, the cheapest one, and this is Model Y. This is Model X. Yeah. Okay, this is the one. If you don't know what's the difference between SpaceX and NASA, please go and study it, and it's just remarkable. This is not two rockets going up. These are two rockets coming back down with retro fire. This is the first time both rockets landed safely. He can reuse the rocket to fire again. This is the original rocket. It launches stage 1 separate, it flips back. This goes on, stage 2 separates, and the satellite goes off. The payload satellite goes off. In the meantime, phase 1, stage 1 is the heavy one, drops down, it still has some fuel in it, it reverses itself, it flips itself, and it fires a rocket, and it lands back here. So this is just incredible. This is incredibly difficult maneuver, okay? And he is truly the Iron Man. He became Man of the Year again, 2022. This is the book. It's all already. I highly recommend you read it, just like Steve Jobs' book. Okay, now I talk about artificial meats. You may not know, but the meat market, you see, by 2033 is going to be $600 billion, which is almost the same as electric vehicles. It is a $1 trillion market. Think about the amount of meat that's consumed in America, the amount of mutton consumed in Pakistan, in India, and in Muslim countries, the amount of pork consumed in China. And do you know they are all very polluting? I don't want to, especially beef is very polluting. It creates a lot of carbon dioxide. All right, if you have time, I don't think it's available in Bhutan. If you go to Bangkok, Hong Kong, Singapore, America, go and eat an Impossible Burger. It's completely made of vegetables, even including the red blood. And now it is almost as good as beef. And there's also Beyond Meat. Now, Singapore has artificial chicken already. And Singapore now is the world's #1 country for cultivated meat. I'm talking about meat that is made from stem cells. There's one company called Memphis Meat. This is not from vegetables. Right now, it costs $18,000 per pound. So if it is grown meat, you cannot tell. It would taste exactly like beef. That's from a cow. But at the moment, it costs a lot to produce. But it's only a matter of time. This is cultured meat. So you take the cow, take the stem cell, you grow in a petri dish, and you grow more, and becomes hamburger or becomes a steak. It is possible. It is only a matter of time. And it'll be very good, because then people like me, I will not feel bad about eating meat, because I don't want to eat meat because I'm somewhat Buddhist already. I'm influenced because I don't like to kill an animal. I don't like an animal killed because of me. And also, there's a lot of antibiotics unless you buy organic. Lastly, I want to impress on you the greatest threat to your job, to your country, to your company is OpenAI, ChatGPT. So if you haven't used it, by all means, for God's sake, go and use it. It is the devil which can take away your job, can ruin your life. Please, Sun Tzu, the art of war, know yourself and know your enemy. Then you can win 100 battles. So you better know your enemy. This is your enemy. So I use it daily. I was one of the first to use it. Okay, now coming back, I'm coming to the end about the last 1/4. So we will have time for question and answer. Now, I've been saying Silicon Valley, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they're all very smart. But how come American students are so poor? Do you know that all the top students are from Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, Korea, Finland, Ireland? So it's not a racial thing. These are Caucasian people in Finland, Ireland, all right, Liechtenstein. So it's not a racial thing. We don't want to say Chinese people are smarter. No, it is your School system is your family system. See, okay, Singapore is top. Until Shanghai came along, Singapore was number 1 or number 2 all the time. But Shanghai beat us now. But now we make them go with China team with other cities, so it dropped back below Singapore. We say it's not fair to take the top city. You should combine Shanghai with Beijing with some other small city. Then the representative is not as good. But look at the US, terrible, reading terrible, math even worse. They couldn't count, they couldn't multiply. But why are they so good? You have to ask yourself, why? Tell me why you lie. This is the Beatles song, okay? If we are so smart, why is there lack of Nobel Prizes, lack of world-beating companies, and yet America dominate creativity, Nobel Prizes, startup, all these companies? Why? Okay. Now, these are the most innovative companies. You will notice there are not too many Japanese companies, only Sony and Toyota. So we consider the other Honda, Seigo, whatever, not that innovative. So the most innovative, we agree, is Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, and Microsoft now with OpenAI is going to be over here. So it is not how big your company is, it's how innovative you are. These are the popular idols. Why do I say so? Later on, you see, you're talking to a person who have idols after idols in my life, and I follow them. And in some cases, I get to meet them in real life. So just like some of you have, maybe His Majesty is your idol, and some of you have met him. If you idolize enough, maybe one day you get to meet him. You don't know. And not only idolize the person, learn from him. That is the most important. So Elon Musk, what is the kind of guy he is? He says, you either watch it happen or be part of it. So he says, go in, get involved. Don't just sit there. And he's shown it. You better be careful. Whatever business you are in, you hope he doesn't get in. Because if he gets in, most likely your company will lose. I hope he will get into global warming. All right. I hope he gets into global warming. He may come up with a way of sucking carbon dioxide out of the air. And we know Bhutan is carbon negative. Maybe he has a way of making your trees produce 10 times as much oxygen. And maybe he has a way of having a kind of solar cell or a kind of algae that will suck carbon dioxide from the water and then sink into the bottom or become cement. You can use the carbon dioxide to be cement. So I dearly hope he will get into solving global warming. We need him badly. So this man is also, he died young. He died at the age of only 45 from pancreatic cancer. And he gave his last commencement speech at Stanford, said 4 very important words: stay hungry, stay foolish. Remember that. Stay hungry is easy to understand. Stay foolish. Why did he say stay foolish? That means just like you are a baby again, just like you are a teenager again. Don't be like an old man. Say, oh, this cannot be done, that cannot be done. When you're a kid, you think everything is possible. You always ask why. Why not? Okay. Your dad said, go to sleep. So why should I go to sleep? So this is another idol, not so much my mind. Okay, this is my first idol. So it is very important. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. What incredible. I went into physics. My first bachelor and my master's degree was in physics. Very hard. But he gave me the push to learn physics. This is my second idol, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And that's young me. First time I stood in front of his hotel in San Francisco, and he agreed to see me. And I became so, it's like if you met His Majesty overseas, and you were so mesmerized, so taken aback. So about less than 10 years after this was taken, I finished my PhD, I worked my job, I quit, I went back to work for him. He was my boss, top boss. So I get to work for my idol, and it was an incredible 13 years. And I tell you, if you are happy of what I did and doing for you in Bhutan, I owe it to this man. I owe it for him. He gave me and gave Dalston and Justin, they are younger, they are not as influenced like I was. He single-handedly gave us our work ethics, our efficiency, our incorruptibility, our honesty, our drive, our everything. He gave it to us. He inspired us. Okay, this is my third idol. This is the man who opened China up after Mao Zedong died. And this was taken by me in 1985, May 15. I was so lucky to be part of the Singapore representative team to go and meet him once in a lifetime, meeting him. And I took this fantastic picture of him. And he was my idol, and I got to meet him. This is my current idol. The joke is that I still didn't meet him yet. Yeah, I'm hoping to meet him. Maybe if His Majesty come, I can ask Mr. Elon Musk to meet us. Then I will carry the bag of His Majesty and go along to meet my current, maybe my last idol. All right, and this is one of my idols. He's 101 years old now, Nobel Prize winner, the first Chinese Nobel Prize winner. I organized this group. That was me 35 years ago. I organized this group of international advisors. I hope one day I can help you all to organize international panel of advisors in technology, in biotechnology, to help advise your country. I cannot promise you I will get you hopefully one Nobel Prize winner. I cannot promise you I do know some. With my persuasive mind and mouth, with His Majesty, hopefully behind my back, I can convince the Nobel Prize winner like him to be in the panel advisor for Bhutan. And it brings so much prestige. I heard that no Nobel Prize winner has ever gone to Bhutan to give a public speech. Maybe they were there as tourists. So I will try to be the first to invite the Nobel Prize winner to visit Bhutan and give a speech, hopefully carried by Bhutan radio, TV, and everything. And they will inspire somebody like me 60 years ago, somebody like you, to go into physics or technology or open AI. Okay, last two slides. So are these assumptions correct? A small landlocked country cannot keep this culture and be modern and economic prosperous. GNH and GDP are exclusive. You are going to suffer declining population and brain drain. You have to accept it. Is this true? And what are the problems you have? You can tell me.
Second one may not be true.
Okay, all right. Now, so these are some of the things my Singapore colleagues and I are doing. We are helping CST, curriculum, facilities, faculty, training, manpower. I'm going to teach 2 courses this August when I go to CST, project management and technology management. If you are back in Bhutan, come down to Punsulin and take my course. Maybe we'll give you a special deal. I'm sure they'll make it in person. I'm going to teach in person. Industrial infrastructure, we're helping. Lately, most of you know, His Majesty announced already, we are going to have a special economic zone. I'm going to help to get you investors, or help to promote. Maybe we will assist in immigration. I'm right now helping you to promote, understand social standing of graduates and entrepreneurs. Okay, last 2 slides. Remember this, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination circles the world. And the last one, Elon Musk like to say, also shoot for the moon. So even if you miss, you will land among the stars.
Officer, I've been to Bhutan and also in Singapore. So I heard that LQ saying, had Singapore not been under Malaya, things would not have been able to happen like it has happened. So from the first principles eye of view, what are the similarities can you see between Bhutan and Singapore?
It's very good. Good question. Professor Tommy Koh, who is the top diplomat for Singapore, who spoke for RICS. If you go on their website, you will see the different podcasts. There would be a big podcast on Tommy Koh, recorded about 4 months ago. And look for the podcast by me, recorded about a month ago. Tommy Koh wrote a book called Small States in a Big World. And it has 1 chapter written on Bhutan. So when he was asked the question, can Bhutan do well in landlocked country, Professor Tommy Koh said, Luxembourg is a landlocked country. Switzerland is a landlocked country. Yeah. Switzerland and Luxembourg is among the top 10 per capita GNP countries in the world. So do not say, oh, because I'm landlocked, I cannot grow. Yes, flying out of Bhutan is not easy, but Singapore, when we started 60, 70 years ago, was very poor too. If you go and look at some black and white film of Singapore in the 1950s and 60s, when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew came to power in the 1960s, it is definitely worse than Bhutan now. If you don't mind, when I went back in the 1980s, 79, 80s, Singapore's infrastructure finance would be better than Bhutan now. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not insulting anybody because I'm your colleague, your close friend. I do not say things to make you lose face or insult you. You know, everything I say is for your good and for my good because I am your special advisor. So we need to take the disadvantage and turn it into advantage. I'm proposing, for example, electric vehicle is a very important technology we are going to concentrate on at CST. Why? Because your electricity is so cheap. So why are you still having gasoline cars? The last trip I went was in March. I came from the airport and it was dark already. And I passed by the only petrol station. There was a long line. And I was very mad. Why should you be queuing up to pumping gasoline that are so expensive that's coming from India by truck? You should be driving electric vehicles. Your buses should be electric vehicles. And we are going to do that for you. And you import all your meat, I understand. Maybe one day we can have cultivated meat, okay, so that you stop importing meat. What about agrotechnology? You know, if you go to Whole Food here, if you buy organic tomato compared to the ordinary tomato, sometimes it's twice the price, okay? So you cannot grow ordinary tomato in Bhutan because the transport cost is too high. But I'm sure you can grow organic orchids. Yeah, you can grow organic strawberries, blueberries that are very expensive. You know, cordyceps. You have cordyceps that are very expensive in Hong Kong and China. That could be an export. We are thinking of cryptocurrencies. There are already cryptocurrency mining in Bhutan already. It's already in the newspapers. So I'm not saying anything that's secret. Bhutan has many cryptocurrency miners already. Why? Because your electricity is very cheap, okay? And cryptocurrency mining, Bitcoin mining, needs a lot of electricity, okay? So it's a fantastic place to be. There are many other things too.
Someone asked the question, what is more important, networking or skills for your career? What's your opinion, Prof?
You need both. If you don't have the skills, sorry, you'll be just bullshitting, right? If you have skill and no networking, that's no good either. You will be just a nerd. If you want something very selfishly, people could tell. I was a diplomat for about 3 years. It's very hard to be a diplomat. You got to do it right, the right level, not too hard, not too soft, not too greedy, not too reserved. And that's why networking and career skills are both important. I think for Bhutanese, networking is more important because you are still a conservative society. You are reserved. That's the last I can say.